Imagine that you are born into the most powerful family in the world. Your bloodline is celebrated, your name is revered, and your destiny is shaped long before you can speak. But behind the golden crowns and jeweled thrones lies a dangerous truth. Your family has been marrying each other for generations, believing it will keep the bloodline pure. And then one day, a child is born, not a future king or queen to be celebrated, but a living reminder of what happens when power ignores the laws of nature. This is the story of a queen who gave birth to a monster and the horrifying reality of royal inbreeding. Watch until the end, because the real consequences didn't stop with this child. They shaped the future of entire nations. And number one on our list of effects will leave you speechless. Our story takes us deep into the royal courts of Europe, where alliances were sealed, not with treaties alone, but with marriages between cousins, uncles, nieces, and sometimes even siblings. For centuries, this was considered a sign of strength. The reasoning was simple. If you keep outsiders out of the family, you keep control of the throne. But nature doesn't bend to royal decree. When close relatives have children, the chances of dangerous genetic mutations rise sharply. Traits that might be harmless in a distant ancestor suddenly collide in the same person, and the results can be devastating. Historians have documented cases of extreme deformities, chronic illnesses, and mental instability, all wrapped in royal robes. One of the most infamous cases is that of Queen Joanna of Castile, better known as Juana la Loca, Joanna T. Mad. While she herself was not born with the most visible physical deformities, her mind was deeply affected, and historians believe inbreeding played a role in her mental decline. But the truly horrifying example came generations later in her descendants, most notably Charles II of Spain. Born in 1661, Charles was the product of more than 200 years of intermarriage within the Habsburg dynasty. His family tree looked less like a web and more like a tight spiral, with the same names and faces repeating again and again. This was not just an accident of romance, it was deliberate policy, and the consequences were brutal. Charles II's appearance and health shocked even his own court. He had an enlarged jaw so severe he could barely chew, a misshapen skull, and a tongue so large he struggled to speak clearly. His body was frail, plagued by constant illness, and most disturbingly, he was sterile. This meant the very dynasty that had tried to preserve its pure blood had accidentally brought itself to the brink of extinction. Even as a child, Charles was treated more like a fragile artifact than a boy. His education was limited because his tutors feared stressing him. He was carried upstairs, shielded from drafts, and paraded in public only when absolutely necessary. All while courtiers whispered about the curse of the Habsburgs. The queen who birthed him, Mariana of Austria, was his own niece. She was just 14 years old when she married her 30-year-old uncle, King Philip IV of Spain. This was considered politically advantageous, one more bond to keep the Habsburg Empire united. But Mariana's role in history is now remembered less for her political influence and more for the child she brought into the world. She adored Charles and protected him fiercely, yet she also became a symbol of the dangerous obsession with keeping power in the family. In private, she suffered deeply as she watched her son's health decline. In public, she defended the practice that had caused it, refusing to break the cycle of inbreeding even after seeing its cost. Charles's reign was marked by political instability, foreign manipulation, and military decline. Unable to produce an heir, he left behind a kingdom without a clear successor. This plunged Spain into the War of the Spanish Succession, a massive conflict that reshaped the map of Europe. And it all traces back to a royal marriage policy that ignored science, ignored human biology, and placed power above the health of future generations. Inbreeding didn't just destroy Charles's body, it weakened an entire empire, and the shockwaves of that decision are still studied by historians in 2025 as a textbook case of how political short-sightedness can doom a dynasty. Modern genetics now explains what royals of the past refused to see. Inbreeding increases the likelihood of recessive genetic disorders, where harmful traits that are normally rare become concentrated. In Charles's case, researchers analyzing his lineage in the 21st century found his inbreeding coefficient, a measure of how closely related his parents were, was astonishingly high, equivalent to being the child of a brother-sister union. This was the product of centuries of unbroken cousin and uncle-ness marriages. Today, scientists use his case as a warning for breeding programs in animals, and as an extreme example in human genetics lectures. But here's the chilling part. For our modern audience, while royal inbreeding may be a thing of the past in Europe, genetic bottlenecks and similar patterns still happen in isolated communities around the world. In fact, a recent 2025 study from the University of Cambridge found that small, closed populations, whether through cultural tradition or geographic isolation, are still at risk of the same genetic decline that destroyed the Habsburg line. In other words, the story of Queen Mariana and her monster son is not just history, it's a living cautionary tale. The image of Mariana of Austria, holding her infant son, is haunting. In portraits, she appears dignified, regal, her elaborate gown shimmering with gold embroidery. Charles, in contrast, looks pale, almost waxen, with eyes that seemed tired before his life had truly begun. Painters of the time softened the reality, but even in these idealized images, the signs are there. Every brushstroke tells the story of a boy who carried the weight of an empire and the curse of his family's own decisions. Behind the pearls and brocade was a genetic legacy that no amount of wealth or power could hide. By the time Charles, too, died in 1700, aged just 38, his body was so weak he could barely stand. His autopsy report, preserved in historical records, reads like something from a horror story. His heart was the size of a walnut, his lungs corroded, his intestines rotten and gangrenous, and his head full of water. No heirs, no future. The mighty Spanish Habsburg line was dead. The queen who had given him life had also, through the traditions she upheld, given him the curse that killed him. It's a tragedy layered in politics, love, loyalty, and ignorance. In the end, the horror of royal inbreeding is not just about one queen, one king, or even one dynasty. It's about the arrogance of thinking human biology can be bent to serve power without consequence. Mariana of Austria's story is both a warning and a testament to how the pursuit of control can lead to ruin. And in 2025, as science continues to reveal the hidden costs of genetic isolation, her story serves as a stark reminder. Bloodlines may be royal, but nature always has the final say.